week in racing. It's time to recap it. And who better to do it than Michael and Magic? Two bros/pros who cover the highs and lows of racing around the globe on every one of their shows. Real fans look forward to these guys and their last thoughts, cause they know they're not talking out of their royal ascot. What they say makes sense. So ladies and gents, sit back and relax as Blinkers Off presents The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.
What's up, everybody? I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
And this is the Magic Mike Show, 198, getting real close to 200. Mr. Samich, how are you today?
I am doing good, my man. I am doing good. How about yourself?
I'm good, thanks. It's still extremely hot out here, but you know what? I'm inside all the time, and I got a good air conditioning system. So this is why we moved to a place that had central air and none of that box in the window stuff.
Oh,
because
yeah,
that's
the worst.
I mean, in the valley, that's just insufferable.
Yeah, it's one of those things. If you don't live in LA, you'd be shocked at how many places don't have air conditioning in that city because it's actually pretty warm, especially if you go over the hill. The beach isn't so bad. Like in Santa Monica, most of the places don't have it because you just open up a window and you can persevere through that 80-degree day. But man, in the valley, when it gets to 105 day after day, it can be absolutely brutal. And I'm on all these work calls and everyone's saying, oh, yeah, it's so hot out here. It's so hot out here. And so I believe you, man. It's got to be rough.
Yeah, I'm also in Southern California, and it's sunny and gorgeous all the time. So, I don't think anybody's feeling too bad about me. But
haven't had any hurricanes in a while there.
Oh, God, no, and no rain, no hurricanes, nothing. I just before we went on air was seeing some stuff about Hurricane Laura. Man, she's a bitch. Laura is such a bitch. Yeah,
she's taking care of some business over there. We'll just put it that way. She just rolled through, and it had a lot of damage this morning. It's amazing that some of the storm surge that they've had. Hurricanes have always fascinated me, but scared the crap out of me too, because it's just such a powerful force of nature that there is nothing you can do but run and hide. And I hope everyone in that area did run and hide, because it's brutal when you're there.
It's like a flood and a torrential rain and a tornado all at once.
Yep.
Like it's like all of those things at the max hitting you. I've been around a bunch of tornado warnings growing up in the Midwest, but never a hurricane issue, even when I lived in Florida for a little bit. So I got lucky with that. But hey, you know where we're going is Del Mar, where the weather's always great and definitely not 90% chance of rain on Saturday.
May have factored into the decision. Just throwing it out there. Maybe that factored in.
Just a little bit. So we're looking at the late pick 4 sequence for Saturday at Del Mar. But before we get into it, Mike, what's the best thing you saw this week?
I got to give you some props, Magic. This one's coming right back at you. I have 2 articles that I look forward to every year on the website. And one of those 2 articles is, I read more than that, obviously, but there's 2 I specifically look forward to. Why We Hate Your Kentucky Derby edition 2020 came out today. It is freaking hilarious. There's just absolute gems in here. I mean, if you haven't read it, you go check it out. But I'm just going to highlight a couple real quick. Caro, beautiful ending here from Magic. Tizela had already gone to Stewart's shops for ice cream by the time he crossed the wire in the Travers. I mean, which is an awesome line if you know Stewart's in New York. Max Player, his original trainer, Linda Rice, basically said that he needed a 2-month nap after the Travers. So it's essentially a joke article about the knocks on all these horses and why people would say they're against the horses. But Magic is, and Aaron, I'm not sure who wrote it, and then I know you edited it. Yeah. Man, Magic is Aaron and Magic are both quite sly about how they're kind of throwing some zingers at you. I also got a pretty good laugh out of the authentic one. He couldn't get 1.25 miles with 4 rockets up his butt. So there were some good ones in there, and I appreciate that article every time it comes out. It means it's Kentucky Derby week, or almost Kentucky Derby week. It means we know who's going to be in the field, so get excited about it, but you also are having some fun with it. We talked about it last episode. We like to have fun with it. So definitely one of those articles I look forward to every year, and it was a wonderful edition of that article this year.
Well, thank you. I will take credit for the Stewart shops, and only partially because I've never been to Saratoga. I learned about Stewart shops from Saratoga Slim's Travers preview when he talked about where all the "'Tis the Law" signs were hanging around town. Yep. And I had to look up what is a Stewart shop, and then I found out, and I went, oh, okay, there's a lot of them, and people seem to love them. Okay, so that was an easy one to add in. Rockets up the butt, that was Aaron. A 2-month nap, that was Aaron. So most of what you read
done,
there,
Aaron.
yeah, most of what you read there was Aaron, and I just might have touched up a little bit bit. My favorite thing, if you remember from when we covered, I forget which sequence it was at Woodbine last year, but I love Canadian jokes. So my favorite was Cheryl Spite. I completely reworked that one and said he's, because he's Canadian, he's just going to let everybody go by and apologize for being in their way. I know he's not Canadian bred. Somebody was like, he's fucking freaking racist at Woodbine. Also, it's a joke.
Yeah.
But thank you. It's Aaron and I were very excited for the article to come out. The picture is a donkey, which I thought was a good one to put in there. So yeah, we had a lot of fun, and there's always one or two people that take this thing too seriously when they shouldn't, even though there's a disclaimer. At the top of the article it says it, but overall people seem to really like it. So hats off to Aaron for that. Aaron comes up with the ideas. I just go in and just, maybe tiny tweaks here and there, but a lot of that stuff was him. But I'm glad you and a lot of people seem to enjoy it. Thank you very much for that compliment.
Yeah, no, I love it, man. You guys did a great job with it this year. And when you get to Saratoga next year, which I know you're coming, we will definitely go to. It's a magical place, Stewart's. Let me tell you, Seth
is all for it. Look at that.
It's a gas station, but that gas station also has like a miniature grocery store in most of them, and very good ice cream. Excellent scratch-off tickets. We've had some Sandwich winners and scratch-off tickets. And then, of course, if you need bait, there's also like worms at every one. So it's got a little bit of everything. And it's got like some actual like rigged bait too. So Stewart's is just clutch. And they also have very good coffee, and they're open at like 5 a.m, so that when you're going to the racetrack and like you're going to sit there, you always have Stewart's coffee. So it's just been like one of those staples in the Saratoga area. It's very clutch, man. It's awesome.
That sounds great. That sounds like a perfect spot for like a small little summer town in Saratoga that obviously becomes a lot bigger when the horse racing shows up. But growing up in Michigan, we go up to northern Michigan in the summer and go to like up to the sand dunes and the lakes and everything. And we had little shops like that where whichever town we were in, we always had our one spot that was. It was like that. It was like you had great ice cream. This one spot that I loved always had like 23 different kinds of root beer. So when you're a little kid, you can just go in and sample all the different, I was able to convince my parents to get one bottle of each, and then I had like a whole taste testing one summer.
Nice.
So that was great. The bait shop. I mean, literally anything you could find, and it's all right there. And that sounds magical, man. I was prepping for the show, and I played the Bing Crosby Del Mar song that if you listen to the podcast version,
getting Magic pumped up.
It's always but this is the first time I actually got really sad. I was sitting here eating an apple and just getting ready. I was like, oh man, like
you don't get to go this year.
It finally hit me. I'm not going to Del Mar at all this summer, and I've been doing this for a couple of years. And the fact that it hit me so hard, I was like, man, like because they start the races that way, and then when the day ends, they always play that song, and it's just like a great opening closing. And so hearing that this time, and it finally has hit me that I'm not going to Del Mar probably till November, hopefully. But hey, we can still talk about it and bet on it, right?
Yeah, it's a bummer, man. I mean, being a mile and a half from Saratoga for 3 weeks and not being able to go to the track was pretty brutal. And like Del Mar, my friends and I every summer would take the train down. There's a train that you can take from Los Angeles down to Del Mar, and there's a bus that picks you up in time for first post, and you go right there. I mean, it was our tradition. We go in there's a cart where you can drink in, a car where you can drink in the train. So we just get hammered on the way down, a 2-hour train ride, get to the track, sit up in the bar above the paddock all day, and then go back. I miss these things, man. It's a lot of fun going to the racetrack. It's a bummer that we're missing two of the best meets to do it at the same time. But hey, like you said, we'll be back at it next year. We'll be out there, and at least in the meantime, we can we can pick some horses anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I've taken that train before. I took it once, and it was hell coming back because they overbooked it, and two of the cars were like shut off, but they didn't stop selling tickets, so everybody, it was standing room. Especially in those situations, every car is a drinking car on the train. As long as the conductor doesn't see you when he comes through once an hour,
you're fine.
It's fine. It's a drinking. It's if there's any kind of medicinal herbs that you want to eat while you're on the train, it's all good. Nobody's gonna know. Nobody bats an eye. It's great.
Very very leisurely train.
The best thing that I saw, I'm gonna go 2 things. One, holy smokes, the Clippers the other night. Paul George, this was really great because Paul George internalized everything, and he said he was in a really dark place after how poorly he played in the first 4 games.
PG 13%.
Oh my God, he was 0 for 9 on open shots where the nearest defender was at least 4 feet away. That's the one that got me. I'm like you're just in your head at that point. I know that situation. He credited his teammates and Kawhi Leonard for pumping up and saying, we have faith in you. We know. And then he just came out firing in Game 5. And a big reason the Clippers had a 20-point lead in the first quarter is because the Mavericks were like, oh, Paul George can't shoot. And they just kind of let him go. And Paul George, then that gave him the inspiration and the drive to get back in the groove. And that game, I turned it off at halftime and just would occasionally check my phone because I don't want to make, Mrs. Magic was kind of bored watching, a blowout. So, man, I love that game.
Didn't the Mavs come back from 22 down in the previous game?
They did, which was a little. That's why I kept checking my phone.
Okay.
But there was just something different in a lot of.
Yeah, it felt different. You're right.
Porzingis was out still. Doncic's ankle.
Yeah, it's worse.
That was a big thing. Like watching him wincing every time he was stepping, moving up the court. At halftime, I was like, you have to pull him. You're not going to win this game. Doncic is only going to get more hurt. Just pull him out of the game and try and give him, a little bit more rest. And it's a little sad because as a pure basketball fan, we talked about this last show, Doncic is just incredible to watch these playoffs.
Yeah, you want to see him go at it.
I'd love to see a healthy Doncic, face the Clippers and the Clippers win. Because now it's going to be like, yeah, we won because Doncic was hurt and on one leg and Porzingis didn't play.
Well,
it's not the same.
This is the first round. I think if you got a ways to go before you even worry about that. Let's because if they lose in the second round, no one will care that they won the first round. Let me put that out there right now.
We're just going to go, how did you lose in the second round with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George?
Exactly. The only series that matters is when they play the Lakers, if they play the Lakers, or if they win the NBA title. Those are the only two things that matters. Everything else is a failure for the Clippers this year. So it's, this is one of those they just have to get through. And I don't think if they win the title, no one will be like, yeah, but Luka wasn't healthy. That will not be the thing that people say.
Very true. Yeah. Also, I was binging the last since our last show. I binged the first 4 Die Hard movies because I'd only seen the first one.
Okay.
So here's what screwed up. I watched the fourth one, Live Free or Die Hard, when it came out, and I saw that in theaters. Didn't know anything other than it was an action film with Bruce Willis. Then I eventually saw the first one, and then I realized the other day I was like, I haven't seen the second and third one. It's been a long time, so I watched all 4 of them. Those are some great action movies. Like, especially the first one is amazing. It's almost a perfect action film. Die Hard with a Vengeance, the third one, almost as good in my opinion. 2 and 4, they're fun. They're okay. And I haven't seen the fifth and last one yet because it's not streaming for free anywhere. But
okay. So the fifth one is the one with his son, right? Who's also in it.
Jai Courtney plays his son. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I've seen the first, second, and third and fifth. I have not seen the fourth, I think it is. So maybe I have to go. Okay. Yeah, maybe I have to go see that one too. But yeah, they're great movies. By the way, super excited that you like Now You See Me.
Oh yeah,
I was really surprised. Because that's one of my that and National Treasure, the 2 series that I think are just like ridiculously awesome. That are really not awesome, but they're a great waste of time. And Now You See Me too. You should see it. It's actually pretty good, especially if you like or have seen any of the Harry Potter stuff. Real mind bleep that the evil guy in Now You See It Too is Daniel Radcliffe, who all you think of is Harry Potter before. So it's very, very odd. But yeah, it's an excellent movie. You should check it out.
Probably a little self-effacing, right? The fact that he's the villain in a magic movie. That could be... Oh, I guess I'll have to find out. Yeah.
Just saying. Just check it out.
Perfect. Listen, we've figured out a long time we're going to have very similar tastes in movies. So if you like it, of course, I'm going to like it and vice versa. But hey, on today's show, like I said, we're going to be looking at Del Mar's sequence on Saturday, August 29th, the late pick 4, highlighted by the Pat O'Brien Stakes as a Breeders' Cup winning year for the big ass fans Dirt Mile. Let's get into it, Mike. Riders up. All right, kicking things off at Del Mar on Saturday, August 29th. The start of the late pick 4 sequence is race 8. You've got a field of 8 males, 4 and up, going 5.5 furlongs on the main track. This is optional claim for $80,000. Favoritism is going to be on the number 1 Micro Rhythms at 3-1. If you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, thank you for joining us. You can follow along with the Equibase chart right here. Micro Rhythms 3-1. If you watched that last effort, Mike, when he came back from 18 months, that was a damn impressive effort. I love him here. Where are you going?
Yeah, I mean, I almost singled. I actually had this singled originally when I sent the ticket over. I thought the last 3 legs were very difficult, and 2 of them are likely prices. And I'm not even using the favorite in one of the last 2. So I thought that this was the race where if you're going to single, you do single. And I thought Micro Rhythms was that single. You mentioned, off the layoff, that was a really, really impressive race. This horse loves 5.5. He's 2 for 3 at the distance with the second place. He also lost the whip in that race. So there were a bunch of things that kind of went wrong. He had a lot of pace pressure going 21, 43, or 44 and 2. So kind of all this together meant he should have lost that race. And yet somehow he still won that race. And then if you look back in his back numbers, he's got a 99 Beyer his last race before the layoff. He's got a 92 and 94 in the back. If he can improve off any of those numbers, which it's kind of logical considering he was off here for over a year. And those numbers he ran, he was early off his layoff in his 4-year-old season. you could see him taking a step up. And even if he gets back to that level, I think that makes him awfully tough in this group. I also like the inside post. It forces descend, which I think is a good thing here. He should win the race to the turn. Thus, he'll have the shortest way around the track. And, Baffert puts Van Dyke right back up on this horse. So all of that to me is a positive. Micro Rhythms was my top pick. I did end up using one other. Did you stop at Micro Rhythms? Where else did you go?
I did, yeah. You had actually, before you adjusted at the last second, to add another horse here. You and I were lockstep here. If you haven't watched that race, go watch it. It's a quick race. He was sandwiched in a four-wide wall of horses that went 21.5, 44, and 3. He came out of that, the only one horse to move forward out of that wall of 4. And like Mike said, at the 8th pole, Drayden's whip does its best impression of magic when he hits a Mercedes on his motorcycle. It's just up in the air and off on the side. So he was under a hand ride the last 8th. So if you look at the chart and you're like, oh, well, he was ahead by a length at the 8th pole.
He was getting
ended
caught.
up only winning by a neck. Drayden, it was only one-handed. He was just doing this. He was like, all right, just to get him home. And Drayden kept looking. He knew he had the backup, the second horse, Jamming Eddie, won. He knew that he had it. So it was a very impressive effort. And again, after 18 months away, 17 months away, you shouldn't be able to do something like that. 2 good works after that, so you don't have to worry about him falling off the pace at all. To me, this was almost an easy single. Single.
I wouldn't go that far, just because there is still some question here. But in this case, Dennis asked, how much do you think losing the whip means? It's different depending on where in the race they lose it. When they lose it at the 8th pole, it's significant, because the horse, you essentially cannot re-rouse the horse at that point or correct it from switching. Like, a lot of times they'll use the whip to switch leads. A lot of times they'll use the whip to be able to move the horse inside or outside. You lose all of that ability. In the last 1/8 of a mile in a 5.5 furlong race is a significant amount of time. I mean, that's over 33% of the race that he didn't have a whip. So it's just a lot of, it's over 17% of the race that he didn't have a whip. It's a lot of the race that he didn't have it. And when everyone else is using that crop to be able to try and push the horse forward, Drayden only was able to really hand ride him. And like Magic said, he still looked pretty comfortable in doing it. That's the other thing. Like, when you go watch the race,
he wasn't panicking.
Yeah, he looks pretty comfortable. I actually had 3 other horses marked in here that I thought you could use. I am going to use the 8 Surfing Star. This horse is coming off a layoff, and this horse is cutting back in distance. But if you look at the races at 6.5 that it started its career, it ran an 87 and 88 Beyers. It was able to get to the mid-90s during its 3-year-old season. Then had a couple races at 4, including a 94 Beyer. Now we're cutting back here in the first start as a 5-year-old. I like the fact that Rispoli picks up the mount, and the workout 2 back was excellent. 59 out of a gate. Looks like this horse is ready to roll. I think you're going to get a price on this horse. I think 6-1 is going to float up. So I'm going to use the 8 as well. The other 2 horses I thought that were interesting were Tiger Dad and Desert Law, 2 horses that you used last time out, Magic. The Desert Law, the horse used in the grade 1 Bing Crosby last time out, who's dropping all the way down here in allowance 80. Is there a reason you didn't like him here? And what do you think of the Victor Espinoza roulette that they're playing on these 2 horses here?
So Carla Gaines, to me, you never play her first off a layoff, but you almost always play her second off a layoff. That was the time to play this horse. The fact that
when it finished 8th by 10 lengths back.
Well, he was last, but we're actually going to talk about the Bing Crosby later for when we get to the Pat O'Brien, but that was a stupid race where you had all but 2, you had 6 of the 8 horses all pushing each other on the front end, and then you had Collusion Lose like Setonian coming from off the pace, and that's why they were like at first and second. I think that was the time to try and beat or to try and use Desert Law here. You're getting 6-1, and he was almost 7-1 that day. You'll probably get 6-1 at least on him here. And to me, this is a jockey upgrade. Juan Hernandez is a better jockey right now than Victor is. But I just think that Micro Rhythms is too fast for anyone to keep up with. And if Desert Law, because the splits are almost the same from the Bing Crosby, Desert Law gave way halfway through that, like almost every other horse did when they faced Micro Rhythms. And Micro Rhythms was first off the layoff. Now he's second off. Desert Law that was his chance. That's the reason I'm off of Desert Law.
All right, yeah, and the other horse I thought was worth mentioning was the 2 Champagne on Me Too. Surely because of the pace setup. You're getting Flavian Pratt on the only closer in the race. You just mentioned the Bing Crosby and how, and this is one of the reasons I like the 8. I think the 8's going to come from off the pace too, since it's been running longer. The pace is going to be hot in here. I mean, Micro Rhythms is going to go. Fight On is usually forwardly placed. McHale will probably go. Little Juanito will go. Tiger Dad and Desert Law both have speed. You could see 5 horses lining up here, and that would set up for the 2 or the 8. So I decided to go with the 8 over the 2 because of the back numbers, but I could see someone using the 2 here as well.
That, and also a big thing is the distance. If this was 6 furlongs or anything longer, I'm not singling. But Micro Rhythms to me is this is like having a turf sprinter going 5 furlongs and a bunch of horses like to go a mile. Like there's just one horse that's just faster than these. And now that he's from the rail, I think it's a sharp one. I think if you were looking for a price, I think the 8 Surfing Star at 6-1 is great. And like somebody else, like you and someone else mentioned, recently picking up the mount is a pretty big one because he hasn't raced for Bruce Headley once in his entire career. This is the first time he's ever ridden for Bruce Headley. So it's not a small angle to play right there.
I agree. That's why we're using them. Let's get them home. Actually, let's get the 1 home so we're both still alive.
We'll move on to the second leg of the late pick 4 sequence at Del Mar on Saturday, August 29th. Race 9, you got a field of 11 males 4 and up, plus 1 also eligible entered, going a mile and a 16th on the turf course. Technically, the favoritism, Mike, is on the number 9 Bordertown at 7-2. Here's the screwed up part. If the actual favorite, if all 11 horses were running, is the also eligible Fly to Mars at 3-1. I'm actually kind of glad he didn't show up here because I would definitely be using him if he draws in. I'm definitely going to change my ticket here to throw him in. But right now, Bordertown is your favorite at 7-2. This is a horse I've loved before. We've talked a lot about on here. Where are you going on top?
Well, I was considering singling the 12 if the 12 drew in. So that tells you how much I like the 12 in this spot. So I would also be using the 12, and I may end up going 4 deep in the first leg and singling the 12 here if the 12 draws in. I'm going to go 5 deep here. I'm going to spread out. I like the 3 horse, One Bad Boy on top here. Look, this horse did nothing wrong. When it was 2 and 3 years old. It ran solid race after solid race and continued to progress forward. Long layoff. Now Balthus brings it back here. It's a really good spot for it. It's a horse that likes to be up front, and it has been working absolutely lights out over the Del Mar main track and the turf. It's got a bullet over both of those in the last 4 works. Balthus is 33% off this type of layoff, so absolutely no concern about him coming back. And this horse has one option, and that's go, go, go. And I kind of like it in this spot because, we got like Order in Law in here who won wire to wire last time out. Well, that horse had never shown that speed before and did it at 18-1. So that's not the type of horse that I'm really that worried about from an upfront perspective. There is other speed in here, but since I'm going 5 deep, it gives me the ability to also play some horses I think that can come from off the pace. So my top pick is the 3, One Bad Boy. I think he's a must-use on all tickets. I also think Brando the Bartender is a must-use on all tickets. That's the 8 horse. We get Rispoli up here for the Craig Delisi Bard. This is one of those where I think the added distance is going to be a huge factor. I like the fact that this horse has been facing some very good horses as well. If you look at who it's been facing, that really is what the deciding factor is. Galilean he's faced in the last 2 times in state bred races. We're going into the Open Company, which concerns me a little bit. But if you look 4 back, who's able to compete at this level in the Open Company, I think the mile and 16th is a great distance for him. If it's a repeat of the last race, he's going to be closing late, and he's got every chance to get home here. I like the 5-1 price. Like I said, there's a lot of different ways to go here. So I'm going to start out with those 2. I am going to use Bordertown as well. How deep did you go here, Magic? And who was your top pick?
You and I agree on all 5 picks.
Oh, geez.
I didn't want to say it. I was going to.
So you're 5 deep, and you literally we were going to single by 5 and be the same.
Yep. That's what I'm telling you. I started laughing when you emailed me your picks because I was like, the first 2 legs were literally, and it doesn't change a whole lot when we get to the other 2 legs. So I'll tease that out there as well. There's a lot of pace in here. And you brought up a great point. When you're going, One Bad Boy is actually the last one that made my ticket just because of how much pace is in here. But I think that this is the best of the pace horses. You brought up a great point. Order in Law, he didn't get much pace pressure in that, and it was a speed favoring turf. If you remember back at the start of the meet, it was almost like a merry-go-round on the front end of the turf course. So he's not getting any of that setup here, so I completely chucked him, not even sniffing him. One Bad Boy was my pick to win the Queen's Plate, so I love this horse. I absolutely love it. You could be a little concerned that Flavian Pratt leaves him, but first of all, Drayden's a better jockey than his percentage shows right now. Also, Bordertown was my top pick because when he won at Santa Anita in May 24th, Mandela was talking about how this horse, he's like, I'm going to take it slow with him, but this could be developing into a really good stakes horse for me. Threw him into the American. faced older horses. Okay, it wasn't the best spot for him. He was a little slow out of the gate. Got 4 wide, not the best trip. Chuck that last one, mile and a 3/8. I didn't even play him there when he was going as the even money favorite. And look who was ahead of him in those. Proud Pedro, a North County guy. 2 guys that we were both like, you got to use them in the Del Mar handicap last out. So this is a huge class relief comparatively. So I love that with Pratt getting up there. The other 2 that you talk about Brandon the Bartender. Reese Booley is 4 starts, has a 2nd and 3/3 on him. And he's only ridden for this barn 6 total times. 4 of them have been with this horse. So he loves this horse. Galilee is the best Calbred on dirt or turf right now, male or female. So you've got that going for him. If Galilean was here, he would be a lot shorter than 5-1. So I think if you've got to use him. Who else do we have? We got the 1, Gregorian Chant. You could be a little concerned that Abel Cedillo was leaving for 11, Lincoln City, who is the other horse that we're both using. I love the fact that as a first-time gelding, he popped a career best 88 buyer last out. And Phil D'Amato, second off, 14%. Not a good ROI, but that's because he's usually a lot better price than 8-1. Juan Hernandez, more than capable of stepping in for Abel Cedillo. I'm a little concerned about the rail draw. That's why he wasn't my top pick, because he doesn't like to go straight out of the gate, and I'm worried about a bunch of horses kind of coming down on him as they get out of the chute onto the main track. But I thought you had to use him here, and especially because as a 3-year-old, look at what D'Amato was doing with him. As soon as he brought him over, he won an optional claimer first out, not usually a winning angle for D'Amato. Threw him right in the Cinema Stakes, and he was 4th, but Parsimony was ahead of him. Neptune Storm, who's been a very talented turf stakes horse, the greatest stakes horse in California. King of Speed is there. King of Speed was really great last year. He is, I think we should change his name to King of Fading in the Stretch at this point, because that's all he likes to do. But there's a lot of good back class, and so the fact that his last effort, a mile and an 1/8, wasn't great, that doesn't worry me. I think he's great here. Did I miss anything that you've loved about the 1 horse?
No, I mean, it's also a slam dunk horse. And speaking from experience, slam dunk, bringing horses over from Europe and running them on the turf usually ends very well for slam dunk and the people who are betting that horse. The progression on this horse it's screaming like this is going to be a career best next time out. Second start off a layoff late in the 4-year-old season for a lightly raced horse that D'Amato has taken his time with, that he thinks very highly of. I know Slam Dunk thinks very highly of. And this is a great example. We talk about Tomlinson a lot. It's a great example of why you can ignore Tomlinson sometimes. Probably the lowest Tomlinson I've ever seen on a horse I'm going to use here. 158 for the distance on turf. That's terrible. It's terrible. But man, this horse has been good on turf. So you can't really ignore the results. So that's why, sometimes Tomlinson's a good way to point you when you don't have anything on paper to look at. But once you have the actual races, I'm going to lean more toward that than relying on something like the Tomlinson, because Gregorian Chant can clearly get the distance on the turf. That's not been a problem. The last one on both of our tickets is the 11 Lincoln City, who you didn't talk about, so I'll jump in here. I actually considered using this horse much higher than I did. This was one of those where the horse it looks like it's ready to go again. And this is a factor who, I love, especially on turf. It's going to be a tactical horse. It doesn't need to lead, so it's going to be able to sit right off of the pace. I don't think the extra distance is going to be any issue for this horse. It's 1 for 4 on the Del Mar turf, but been consistently getting better and better and better. And I love it when you see that slow progression without really seeing where that top is yet. And I don't think we've seen the top of Lincoln City. It's just interesting. If you go back and you look at its buyers from almost a year ago, it goes from 63 to 67 to 69 to 79 to 84 to 80 to 88 to 87. It just kind of keeps creeping up.
Yep.
There's more in the tank. And I like that slow progression, because it means the horse is getting stronger and better as it ages. And that's something where I really like to look for. 12-1 on the morning line. This horse should be able to make a big time run around the second turn. If it sits right behind all that speed that we do believe is here, Lincoln City should get first run. And I love first run horses on the turf, because if you can get to the lead and make the closers catch you and you still have something left, it's hard to get to you. 12-1 is a great price. I don't see how you leave the 11 off.
I did a double take when I saw the prices. I was like, wait, 12-1? What are they not seeing that I'm seeing here? I thought this was great. His last out, he broke from the rail going a mile, and Abel Cedillo tucked him right behind the leaders. And like you said, he got the first run. That perfect pocket trip, I think he can get here. It's going to be a little harder for him because they're coming out of the chute, but he's going to have more of a chance. It's a gradual turn off the chute onto the main track. Cedillo's going to have plenty of time to try and get him into like that good 3rd, 4th stalking position. If he can save ground going into the clubhouse turn and have that nice pocket trip, this horse, you talk about prices, man. I think this horse has a really serious chance. If he gets that pocket trip, watch out for him at 12-1.
Well, and that's why having the tactical speed is so important in this spot, because he can break with the leaders and then just slowly just hit the brakes back and just glide back into right behind that wall of 3 horses and then tuck in, whereas everyone else has to kind of use a little horse to be able to try and stay with those leaders. He's going to be able to naturally do that with the speed this horse has. And this horse was leading 5.5 furlong turf sprints. This horse can go 21 and change if it wants to. So you're going to still be able to save some horse while trying to move over. The 11 post does scare me a little bit because of that shoot. You could end up being like 4 or 5 wide in that swing into the stretch the first time. But I'm hoping that because of the speed and the number of horses I think want to go, that we can sit right in behind it even before that shoot. And so we're maybe 2 or 3 wide around there, and then on the rail on the first turn.
You also, there's 10 horses breaking to his inside. I've watched every turf race at Del Mar in the shoot. Not all 10 horses are going to break cleanly and correctly. So he doesn't have to clear 10. He's going to have to clear maybe 5 or 6 by the time they get to that onto the stretch there. And like you talked about with Abel tucking back and pulling in, like touching the brakes a little bit, he did that exact move in his last race. It was fun to watch him because he just tapped back, does this, leans him over, and then that's why the horse won right there. Yeah. So
I love it. And this one will be interesting to watch the will pays and the odds, because you mentioned you can't believe he's 12-1. Part of the reason he's 12-1 is because your favorite's in AE. So taking a look at the will pays for the daily double going into the first race will give you an idea of kind of where the actual odds for this race will fall, and give you an idea of how you want to shape your ticket if you do want to use certain horses at prices or not, because these odds are going to change quite a bit when you take the favorite out. And naturally, it's just going to have a lot of flux.
We'll move on to the third leg of the late pick 4 sequence at Del Mar on Saturday, August 29th. The feature race of the day, the Grade 2 $150,000 Pat O'Brien Stakes, field of 8 males, 3 and up. However, I will let you know Vertical Threat is expected to scratch out of here and go to the Pat Day Mile on Kentucky Derby Saturday, a week from now. Favoritism is on the number 4 Flagstaff at 5-2, which that is a really, I thought maybe he could be the favorite. 5-2 surprised me a little bit. This is a Breeders' Cup winner year in for the Big Ass fans. Dirt Mile and Mike, you and I, we agree on 2 out of the 3 here, and the one you're using is the last one I took off the ticket, so it'll be a little interesting to see the one that I used and you didn't, what you think about him. Go ahead and give me your top pick here.
Well, I actually would use Vertical Threat if he was in this race, so I'm going to start out with that. If he doesn't scratch, I mean, he is projected to, so I'm not going to use him. But if he doesn't scratch, I would put him in here, and I would. Not sure what I would do, to be honest with you. I might end up singling that one horse in the first race and going 4 deep here. My top pick is Giant Expectations. This is a really funky horse. It doesn't change speeds all the time. It doesn't necessarily run straight all the time, but it has loads of talent. I mean, loads of talent. And it ran in this race last year, ran a 104 buyer. You see a lot of races that are longer. This horse has absolutely no issue going 7 furlongs. So I'm not worried about that at all. And that is a concern with a couple of these horses, that they can get to 7, where I know the Giant Expectations is going to be able to run big. Just missed a Catalina Cruiser in this race last year when Catalina Cruiser was all the rage. So that was a very good race. Likes the Del Mar track. Did that off a layoff. We're doing this off a layoff, so no concern off the layoff side. And again, Peter Urton, 26% off this type of layoff. This is the most talented horse in the field. And that's why it's my top pick. I mean, it's just that simple. All the other horses, they're good horses. This is your most talented horse in the field. This horse was trying to be the best older male in the world for a while. And now it's getting back to something that's shown it's very good at. So I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say the Giant Expectations run big here. That's going to be my top pick.
And that's the horse that I left off. But, because, first of all, that price, go F yourself. 7-2, no. That made it easier for me to go, you're on. Listen, there's a lot of great things to like about this horse. He won this race in 2017. He was at one time facing all the top horses. The goal is to always get him to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Maybe the goal should be to have him hit the board in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, but they've gotten him there the last 3 years. I picked him to win this race last year, and I was heartbroken when Catalina Cruiser caught him right at the damn wire, because Catalina Cruiser, I think, was 1-20, and I had almost 4-1 on Giant. I couldn't believe that I lost that one. So he is a great horse. Reese Bully picking up for the first time. He and Peter Urton do extremely well together. He is coming off of an injury. He had a splint injury, but Urton has taken his time with him, given him plenty of rest. And clearly, this race into the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile is his pattern of what they try and aim for. He's a horse for course. There's no class drop for his return. Like, they're bringing him back from since November. They're putting him straight into this race, which isn't the toughest edition of this, but it's still a Grade 2 race with a Breeders' Cup berth on the line. All that being said, I just don't think he's good enough to win against who I think are just slightly better horses. I think if you're playing exotics, you have to use him underneath. I just wouldn't sniff him on top to win, and that 7-2 price makes it easier for me to just kind of chuck him.
No, that's fair. I mean, I'm not as worried about it. Honestly, if we can get through the first leg, I want to be deep enough to be able to cover everything else. And I'm not going to go crazy in the last. I'm interested to see how many horses you use in the last now, because it's got to be quite a few if your ticket's not like $20. You didn't. Everything you said is true. I still believe this is the most talented horse, and I think 7-2 is a pretty good price if you're getting the most talented horse in the race.
That's true. It's all your perception of value.
Exactly. So if this horse was 2-1, I might balk at it, but at 7-2, I think it's a decent value. Other two I'm going to use are Flagstaff and CZ Rocket. They're the two best horses going right now in my mind in this field. Mm-hmm. I know we talked a little bit about the Bing Crosby and Law Abiding Citizens coming out of there and was part of that pace. I think that's a horse you could use here if you want to. But I'm concerned that you're going to see a hot pace in this race again. And look, Flagstaff and CZ Rocket are just better at 7 furlongs. That to me was one of the big points here. Both of those horses are very good at this distance, very proficient at going anything from CZ Rocket's an incredible horse. The horse goes 5.5 and 1.16 miles. It's pretty amazing.
Right.
But I think 7 furlongs might be this horse's best distance, because I think it has that, again, like last race, the tactical speed. So it doesn't fall too far behind that fast pace, but it has the stamina to be able to go longer, which means that kick on the 7 furlong races is usually pretty damn good. And so 2 for 5 lifetime with a third place, those are all in mainly higher end races. We're not talking about, the maiden special weight 7 furlong, right? We're talking about optional claimers, high end optional claimers, graded stakes, overnight stakes, things like that. And then Flagstaff right to the inside has been running against better, running against 6 and 7 furlongs. I mean, look, McKenzie, Whitmore, beat Roadster, faced Omaha Beach and Chancelot last year. I mean, Flagstaff has been knocking heads with horses who are more talented than the horses in this field. So I feel like 5-2, I think, is a little short on Flagstaff, to be honest. But I also think Flagstaff is probably the now horse, whereas Giant Expectations is the horse that's kind of the most talented, but that is facing more obstacles.
So Flagstaff skipped the Bing Crosby for this, and Sadler said it was because he would rather have him do 7 furlongs than 6 furlongs. So I'm with you. This was the price sucks, but this horse, his last 2 wins were stakes races at this distance, including the Grade 2 San Carlos back in March when he beat Roadster and McHale. Victor Espinoza, isn't my favorite jockey right now, but you pair him with John Sadler, they do pretty damn well.
No way.
Who knew? CZ Rocket was my top pick here. Look at what's happened since Peter Miller claimed him. This horse just was a monster. And let's be honest, he was facing better quality horses optional claiming in Kentucky than what he would have been facing in California. And the fact that they ship him out here to California and they don't go for a normal race where you could try and get that shipping bonus for winning, the shipping bonus doesn't count for stakes races. So they're bypassing any kind of lucrative financial opportunity to put him in here because Peter Miller's that confident in him. Flavien Prat getting them out tells me this horse has a lot of talent. Look who's been riding him for Miller. He had Drew twice, and you have Paco Lopez. So you have some of the most talented runners or the jockeys in Kentucky at that time, and now you're getting Flavien Prat, who's 1 or 1A for the top jockeys in California. The third one I used was Law Abiding Citizen, and a big reason is because I thought that the Bing Crosby it ended up being too short for him, but he was one of those 6 horses in that epic pace duel. He's the only one that didn't completely shit his pants off the turn and fall apart. He did get caught and passed, but I mean, he was going way too fast while contending on the front end. I don't think that there's going to be as much of a pace presence as there was in that race. I'm really hoping not. He's the only one that survived that. My one concern is I wonder if that took a little bit out of him. And you're not really going to know until you see him on the track, but just that kind of an effort to even stay that close to the top 2 horses who ended up getting past him late, it makes me a little concerned, but his works after that have been fine. It doesn't look like he tailed off at all, so I'm willing to take a shot at him, and if I'm getting 5-1, I mean, that's, I think that's a pretty damn good price.
Yeah, I thought about Law Abiding Citizen in this spot. I agree with you. I think that last race probably took a lot out of him because, man, he was wheeling early, and he's not a young buck anymore. He's 6 years old now.
Or 6, yeah.
Yeah, and he has his better days are clearly behind him as well. That was my other issue with Law Abiding Citizens, that we haven't seen him return to the 95, 100 buyers that he was running when he was a 4-year-old. And so we've kind of seen a little bit of a drop off and less consistency. And when you combine those two with a really hard race in the last race, and the fact that he's 0 for 4 at 7 furlongs, and you put it all into a ball, I throw that into the trash can. And so that's kind of why I ended up not using Law Abiding Citizen in this spot and going 3 deep. But I get why you'd use him. I just think this is a really tough spot for him.
I agree. And honestly, it sounds like you and I were like this with the 1 and the 7, and you went one way and I went the other way. So if you're watching or listening to this and you have a stronger opinion one way or the other, by all means go for it. Mike and I are going to talk you off of it. We'll move on to the fourth and final leg at Del Mar on Saturday, August 29th in the late pick 4 sequence. Race 11, you've got a field of 10 males, 3 and up, going 5 furlongs on the turf. This is an open 32, claiming favoritism on the number 8 Ultimate Bango at 3-1. And again, Mike, I was a little surprised that this is the horse that ended up getting the favoritism. You've used the favorite in every race, so I'm guessing this is the one where you kind of zagged when everybody else is zigging. Am I right?
Well, I ended up using the 8 too.
Oh, you did use them. Okay.
Yeah, I did. I put the 8 in as the last pick. So this is a total defensive use for me. I'm 5 deep here, and so I'm like, okay, I'm going to include the 3-1 favorite in this spot. We can start with Ultimate Bango. Look, the horse is cutting back. It's got some good races. It could win. It shouldn't be 3-1. It's going from it's taking this epic drop that makes absolutely no sense for a barn that I don't really like seeing this drop with. When you only have 23 races this year and you're dropping a horse from state bred stakes races where it was being competitive down to 32 open claiming, and that tells me you don't want to be running this horse anymore, and that scares me when you're not running a ton of horses, because it's not like the asset isn't more valuable for this size of a barn. It's not like this is Chad Brown who can lose a horse and not even think twice about it, right? So right. I have some concerns about the drop, and that's one of the main reasons why I almost completely left this horse off, and in this case I'm just going to use defensively. For me, my top pick went to the 3-horse Facts Matter, not only because it's the factor on the turf going 5 furlongs, which we all know I do love, but man, the speed that this horse has shown, 2 and 3 back, winning with an 87 and 81 buyer, and what it's done since it got back into the Tim McKenna barn. This is a reclaim for Tim McKenna, who has tried to keep the horse protected ever since he claimed it, and now we're going back in here. And this horse has run on the turf 4 times, but that was when it wasn't quite as mature. Now we're later in the 5-year-old season, and you started to see these buyers jump up, and it hasn't been back on the turf. But that 87 buyer was over the Golden Gate Synthetic. That is a similar surface to what the turf surface is, or it's more comparable than a dirt surface. I think this turf is going to hit this horse right between the eyes. And this is a serious threat to take this thing wire to wire.
Yeah, I love him. This was you and I agreed on 1, 2, 3. 4 of your 5. I've got matched up here, so we're 2 for 2 on these so far. That specifically that Golden Gate Synthetic race you talked about, I've got that highlighted because I thought if he can find that form again, if he can repeat that effort, I think he's going to be really, really hard to hold off in the stretch. My top pick ended up being the number 9 Combat Zone at 8-1. I'm getting Mark Latt and Abel Cedillo in a turf sprint at 8-1. But here's a big reason why. Mark Latt claims him for $25,000 last October, and then he convinces the owner, let's geld him, let's give him a bunch of time off, and then we're going to bring him back to sprinting, which he hasn't done since his debut race. He did this exact same thing with Eddie Haskell a couple of years ago, and Eddie Haskell ended up being a multiple graded stakes winner. They went to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint last year. Mark Latt knows what he's doing, and so the pattern of this trainer to do that really caught my attention. He also has shown that he loves Del Mar going longer. He's got 2 seconds and a third. The second and the third that he had, it missed by a neck and a head. So this horse was right there, getting close to winning. He's coming out of a non-winners of 2 lifetime. He's only got 1 victory, which is what concerns me a little bit. But I think all the changes that Mark Latt is making here, I think they're all positive. And again, Mark Latt wouldn't tell a guy, let's drop $25,000 on a war front horse. We're going to geld him, give him, almost an entire year off, and then we're going to bring him back to sprinting, which he's never done, if Mark Latt didn't think this horse could really rock at this distance and at this level.
I 100% agree with you. I love the fact that this horse shows speed and is cutting back, because it means that the horse will be able to be tactical and close to the pace. I feel like I've been saying that a lot today. But the horse will be tactical and be able to stay close to a 5.5 furlong sprint pace, even though it's been running longer, or 5 furlong sprint race, even though it's been running longer. My biggest concern, and this is why it fell down the ticket some for me, I hate that they're bringing it back for 32. I really wish this was a protected race.
Well,
oh, wait, it is protected. Never mind.
He is protected because there's a waiver rule. They have this in New York, too. If you've been gone a certain amount of time, your first time back, you can option to waive the claim, which they did. If they brought him back and they didn't waive him, then I would be concerned. But
well, okay, we're moving him back up. Never mind. Yeah, no, the fact that they do have him protected, which means that they get to see it before anyone else does and then decide, is a huge factor. So I'm glad they did protect it. My second pick was the 5. Call You Tomorrow. 12-1 on the morning line. And this is a horse where, what if, okay, we look at the last race, right? It was on turf, going a mile, didn't run great, quit. It's only grass effort. What if the issue wasn't the grass? What if the issue was the distance? And that to me is where I think is actually the problem was, because the numbers, the Tomlinson on the grass is very good. Arch is a very good turf sire generally, or I believe it's a good turf sire. If this horse takes the turf sprinting, watch out, because you've got an 88 and 87 buyer, which tower over the field. That was as a 3-year-old. This is the first start off the layoff as a 4-year-old. It's not like Brian Corner is terrible at this. He's 11% off the layoff, 11% turf sprints. I think this horse could be really dangerous at a monster price at 12-1. If it's able to break out of the gate and it likes turf sprinting, this might be your most talented horse. I mean, and so getting 12-1 is a great number on it.
Yeah, if there's he didn't make my ticket, but if there's a scratch, and he's the first one to jump in if there's a scratch. I'm with you. I think I'm willing to forgive it because that was his first time ever routing last out. Here's an angle. We talk about horse for course with Del Mar, how that's important. He hasn't tried the Del Mar turf, but those two big efforts that you referenced, they were at Del Mar on the dirt. So, they say that a lot of the reason horses do well at Del Mar, if they like it, is because of the sea air. It's not necessarily that turf or that dirt. It's the environment that they're in. And if that's the case with this horse, you're right. 12-1 is going to be a huge gift to you. And Aaron Greider's, he's 4 for 20 riding for Brian Corner in the last 2 years too. So you've got that angle going for you as well. He didn't make my ticket, but if there's a single scratch in here, he's the first one that comes in.
So that means that we agree on these 6 then.
You got it.
You want to talk a little bit about Truth Seeker?
Truth Seeker. All right. First of all, Steve Miotti is a sneaky mofo trainer. This guy, I learned at Santa Anita when they resumed racing there. I learned very quickly. You got to watch out for Steve Miotti because he'll do some sneaky
22%.
stuff with his horses. Yeah. He's pretty damn good. Between Golden Gate and Santa Anita, he carried that over. He hasn't gotten a win yet at Del Mar. I'm not that worried about it. This is a tougher meet than Santa Anita anyways. Man, Ricky Gonzalez is normally a jockey. If he's on a front running horse, I'm like, ooh, this is going to be really good. He can handle horses coming from off the pace, and he showed that last time out. And that was the horse's first start at Del Mar. It was his first start in 3 months. He drops just a tiny bit in price, so I think it's more or less a lateral move. But Nero that won that race, that horse was overspotted in that race, or underspotted, whatever it is.
Underspotted, yeah. He shouldn't have been in for 40.
Right. Nero, and here's what happened too, is John Sadler claimed him out of a Kentucky race. He'd never touched turf. The first thing he does when he comes to California is he puts him in a turf mile. The turf mile didn't go well. Sadler didn't say, oh, it's the turf. He said it's the distance. He threw him into this 5 furlong race, and he ran his ass off. And this horse came flying at 26-1. You're not going to get 26-1. You're only going to get 6-1 on the morning line. But with Miotti and Ricky Gonzalez in there, I think second off the layoff, if there's a hot pace, he's got a really strong kick into mischief. There's a lot to love about this horse.
Yeah, and I like the second off the layoff, like you said. The fact that this horse was claimed, and then they tried him on dirt, they tried him short on turf. Now we're going back to short on turf. I think that's going to be a nice angle. Like you said, the 26-1 was amazing last time. We're not getting anywhere near that, but this horse has faced has been very good. I mean, he even faced Kazan, and he faced Snazzy Dresser 3 back on the turf sprint. So you have better horses than what he's facing here today. I think this actually came up as a pretty salty 32 race, but there's a lot of interesting salty horses. Isn't that one dominant horse? And that is what he's been facing in the last races. Nero was a dominant horse in that 40 level. He has the ability where if he can take a step forward here, his A game may be good enough. We're not sure. And I think that's what makes this race so interesting is you have a lot of horses who their A game may be good enough. And you're not sure which ones are going to bring that A game. That's why you got to go deep here.
The last 2 that I used, it's going to be the 2 Blackout and the 7 Oliva. And for one simple reason combined, I am not going to let Flavien Prat and Umberto Rispoli beat me on the turf. The 2 should have won last time out. And really, if it wasn't Prat riding, if Alexis Santino was back aboard, I wouldn't touch the 2 because that horse had no excuse for 7-pound weight allowance. You were carrying 112 pounds and you couldn't win that stupid race in a turf sprint. Yeah. Drove me nuts. But this is Peter Miller, Flavien Prat in a turf sprint. Gary Barber's an owner I love. And then for Oliva, Rispoli's jumping aboard here for the second straight time. Taking a big class drop too. I have an optional claimer where he was running without a tag. Now drops in for 32. It's a son of Golden Sense who was very versatile turf or dirt. Has 2 seconds over the Del Mar turf. That was the last race was on dirt. 2 seconds over the Del Mar turf in both tries. Does have a win at this distance at Santa Anita. So I'm playing it, but again, it's very simple. I'm not going to let Prat and Rispoli beat me here. If they both fall off the board, great. If I get somebody else home, but I am not going to let those 2 beat me.
Yeah, I mean, you have some races where Pratt rode Blackout, and it was very successful. And that's so you can point back to some of those races. My biggest concern with Blackout is he's not the fastest horse in this race, and that's really his biggest weapon is being able to get to the front. I think the 3 Facts Matter is faster than him. I think the 6 might be faster than him. I'm sorry, the 5 Call You Tomorrow might be faster than him. So I think he may be a third place. I'm just not sure if this horse can rate and win. So that's
for a long time.
And that's my biggest concern. Now, like you said, obviously adding Flavien Prat makes a huge difference. So he's able to step the horse up quite a bit, but it's still the style that the horse wants to run. He will not be able to run today. If he makes the lead, all bets are off, right? But I'm not so sure that this horse can be able to make the lead because, I don't think the 22 flat, 45 flat is going to be good enough to be able to kind of get loose. And when he does that, he quits. And so that's my biggest concern there. The 7 was one of those that I looked at a long time. I'm totally with you there. The class drop alone makes it interesting, especially when you have Rispoli picking up the mounts. And I like Doug O'Neill turf sprinting. He's traditionally been one of those trainers who's been able to get horses to turf sprint very well. And this horse has some back numbers. It's been on and off the turf. The last 2 are on the dirt, so I think people will ignore it a little bit in the wagering as well. So I do see a way that you could get to the 7. I just ended up not using it on the ticket.
All right, that's going to wrap things up. We'll go ahead and give it our tickets one last time. And if you were joining us to watch this live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, or if you're watching the replay, thanks so much for joining us. Ticket's going to be right down there at the bottom. I will go ahead and give mine out first. I'm going with the 1 singled in the first leg, then going 1, 3, 8, 9, 11, 1, 4, 5, and then 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. That is a $45 ticket for 50 cents. Mr. Samich.
I'm going to play a 50-cent ticket as well. I'm going to go with the 1, 8 in the first leg, and then I'm going to go 1, 3, 8, 9, 11 in the second leg, 4, 5, 7 in the third, and 3, 5, 6, 8, 9 in the last. It's a $75 ticket for 50 cents.
I love how that just lines up right when we've done this every time. It just so happens that it lines up right when it's time for you to read yours off that it goes by on the bottom.
I'm not going to lie. It was nice to have the same second leg because that's the one long leg. And so I was able to go from one to the other and just shift so it is nice to have it on the bottom. It makes it very easy to not mess up the ticket.
If you guys didn't know, hey, the Kentucky Derby's coming up in just a little over a week. You can go to racing.com. Pre-sale for the Inside Track to the Kentucky Derby Wagering Guide is now available. So just go to racing.com, click any of the banners, the links that you see there, go to the Handicap and Products page. If you are a monthly subscription or higher than that, you will get that for free. So congratulations. Thank you for your business. You're going to love this thing. It is going to be huge. It is going to be thick, as the kids say. It's going to be massive. So, Mr. Samich, we talked about last show, but go ahead and tell everybody again what you're going to be doing for the guide.
Yeah, this thing's going to be awesome. You're going to have top 4 from all the dudes. I'm going to be doing a pick 4 sequence in there on Saturday. Still haven't decided which one because I haven't seen the card yet. But I'm going to put a pick 4 sequence I like in there. Probably do a 50-cent and $5 tickets to try and get something big home. You got bets from Slim. You got Aaron's race by race analysis. Like I said, you have the consensus. It's an awesome guide. Every year it's been one of the best that we've put out. And so excited to be part of it again this year and get that thing rolling. It's this time of year is huge for us, obviously. And I'm going to say Derby time of year, which is not this time of year normally, but Derby time of year is huge for us. And this is one of those races that we all spend a lot of time prepping for. And if you follow the draft and the fantasy and everything, this is the bread and butter of what we kind of cover is these 3-year-old stakes races. So we know, I'd like to think we know quite a bit about these horses. So it'll be interesting to see how this turns out. But yeah, the guide's awesome, man. Make sure you check it out. Make sure you get it if you're not a subscriber. Go ahead and subscribe. And then you get the guide for free and you get some picks too.
The one thing that sucks, well, there's a lot of things that suck about the Derby being pushed to where it is now. There are a lot of great races around the country on Labor Day weekend, next weekend. Nobody cares what's happening outside of Churchill Downs. I mean, I'm looking at Saratoga's got the Iroquois and the Pocahontas, which are the nice big graded stakes races for 2-year-olds. And, Laurel's got a big card and Gulfstream and Del Mar's going to have some good races. Nobody cares. It's all Churchill's the focus next week.
I mean, I'm telling you, man, Del Mar's in the best spot of all of them because there are going to be people competing with Churchill, and then Del Mar at least will be running later, so they'll be able to get some action there late. So it's just amazing the races that line up here all on this one weekend. And I'm not sure what I'm going to do with the Sama Bombs, man. I mean, I right now, I guess it's going to be Churchill. It has to be Churchill, obviously. And then the question is, do you do Del Mar or Saratoga too? Do we do all 3? Because I've been trying to do both on Saturdays for people. And so that'd be a lot of handicapping because Churchill's card's probably going to be like 15 races or something ridiculous because that's what they always do. So yeah, we'll have to figure out what to do. As for Sama Bombs this week, just so everyone knows, I am definitely not doing Saratoga tomorrow because I have no clue how many horses are going to be running. If you watch today, it was a mess because they scratched all the MTOs, then took the races off the turf.
I saw that.
Well, they were trying to keep him on the turf because they wanted to run the races on the turf. And so the right thing to do is to then scratch the MTOs and then say, okay, we're going to keep it on the turf. Then it rained again. Then they took him off the turf. And all of a sudden you have multiple races with 3 horses. And so, because of that, I don't want to try and deal with those races, and especially when I'm trying to hit bigger tickets. It doesn't make any sense to be recommending tickets into those. So we're going to do Del Mar tomorrow. There'll be a grid for Charlestown tomorrow night. And Charlestown is going to have a massive Pick 6 carryover. So that'll be there. It's Charlestown Classic night, which is, by the way, really fun race. I texted the group. It's a bunch of really mediocre horses running in a really fun race.
Someone's going to make way more money than they ever deserve to make for winning that race.
Well, except for that one horse that you love that won last year.
Run Into Love You, the local
there you
hero.
Go. Yeah, there you go. So Run to Love You is trying to win again. It's amazing his record at Charlestown, and there's no world beaters coming in, so he's got a legit shot at taking this thing down. But they're doing their mandatory Pick 6 payout, and that will be, I think the pool right now is over 300,000. So we're probably going to look at a $2 million pool there. So I'll have a grid out for that one. I'm not going to put tickets out because of the other pools are not going to be big enough to support them. But there will be a grid for it for any subscriber, and you can also buy that on the site. And then Saturday and Sunday, we're just going to figure it out, because I'm not sure where the rain's going to come, how hard it's going to come. And I'm trying to avoid doing the rain off days at Saratoga because of days like today.
Yeah, screw it. It's just not fun. Speaking of Saratoga, the Blinkers Off is going to be live. However you're watching us live right now, just wait an hour and a half because they'll be here at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. They're going to be covering Kentucky Derby, the Kentucky Oaks for some early analysis. They're going to be looking at the Sword Dancer Stakes. They have four stakes at Saratoga on Saturday. So lots of good races. The Sword Dancer,
2 great turf races.
Yeah, so we got that to deal with, but make sure you guys are sticking around. Thank you so much for listening. You can follow us on Twitter. I am at Curtis Keller. He's at SummerBomb18, number 1, number 8. Corporate Overlords at Racing_Dudes. Until next time, I'm Magic.
And I'm Mike.
Good luck this week.
The Magic Mike Show, where you hear the experts speak. The Magic Mike Show. Tune into the show every week. The Magic Mike Show. You can trust the show is the bomb because it's being brought to you by RacingDudes.com.